Tonight, we're going to be discussing all the local sport and sport internationally, and we have a very special guest who's been kind enough to join us from Salford Red Devils Rugby League. We're going to be talking to Paul Trainor, the non-executive director of the club. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Jim. Nice to be here.
So, Paul, we Salford radio station. Our goal is to get involved in the local community. That's our primary mission, to get involved in the local community, get people playing sport. And it's been kind enough to come on board, and we've had yourself who's been kind enough to come on board, and the football club as well has sent a representative across as well. So the goal for us is obviously to promote local sport. We cover international sport too. Yourself, tell us a bit about your role over at the Rugby League Club.
Well, I'm one of the non-executive directors of the holding company, and since June last year we've been working to develop our offer as a club. We're working very hard to establish ourselves as a strong community club. We're the only club in Super League without a benefactor, so obviously we're working very hard to create a business which is sustainable, and also to create a provision which supports the fantastic community of Salford. We've got a very strong fan base. Our core fans are absolutely fantastic, and we're looking to develop that number of fans who come to the stadium every week. But really we're looking to establish the club as a very strong Super League club, but built on really strong foundations, linking in with our community and understanding our community, but also looking at developing strong links with community clubs, with schools. So it's a really exciting piece of work we're doing, and we've made significant progress already.
And that's fantastic. And just for the benefit of our listeners who aren't sure what a benefactor is okay? Some of our listeners might not be quite sure what that implications not having.
So in Super League, most clubs have got somebody who's bankrolling the club really and investing money to support their recruitment of players, to support the infrastructure of the club. As a club, we don't have that, so obviously we're looking to create a business which takes in and earns the amount of money it needs to pay the bills and to develop its infrastructure really. And
has that been a challenge? Is it challenging to do that, or?
Obviously, it has been, with challenges, as you would expect, particularly as you've got a closed season where there's no games to be played and no crowd coming through the turnstiles. But we're making very significant progress. We've assembled a very, very exciting squad for this year, and as a result of that, our performances on the field are looking good at the minute, and the crowds are increasing. And ultimately, from our point of view, we want to build a club which is attractive to the community, the city of Salford and Greater Manchester as a whole, to keep developing those crowds, which then brings in more finance, which we can then use to sign players in the future.
Absolutely, and one thing for sure is, when I drive over the M62 and you can see the ground there. It's a nice modern ground. I've been there before. It's a great ground. There's a buzz about the ground. And tell us a bit about the actual ground itself, the stadium itself. It's got a nice location there, and it's very, very visible. About the actual ground itself, how long's that been there for now? Do you roughly know?
We moved into the stadium in 2012. It is a great stadium. Obviously, we'd moved from our base at the Willows, which had been the base of the club for a long time. And we, obviously, one of the challenges we've had previously is to get the crowds into the stadium. But again, with the work we're doing in the community, with the work we're doing with the profile and the work the squad are doing on the field, we're enhancing those crowds, and we're continuing to do so. We've got lots of things planned for the year, theme days linked to particular games. We've got something pretty special linked for World Health Day for the Hull home game, and it's about creating a product and making it an experience rather than just people turning up for the game. We've got all sorts of things going on before and after the game now to really engage families. We've made the move this year from Friday nights to Sunday afternoons for our home games, which is making it a lot more family friendly. Friday night getting across the M60 is a challenge, and not just for our fans but also for away fans perhaps travelling over from Yorkshire. So that had an impact on crowds, and we've seen with the move to Sunday afternoons we can create something which is a bit more of an experience, and we're continuing to develop that.
Absolutely. And what sort of crowds are you guys getting, just out of interest? I mean, what sort of crowds do you get? Has there been a difference between playing on Friday and Sunday? You're getting more people coming through the turnstiles?
Our crowds increased this season. We had 4,700 for the Wigan game on Sunday. Obviously, Wigan have been in a period of transition, and perhaps their away support wasn't as many as we'd expect. But we play them again at home in a few weeks, so that'll be the benchmark of our progress as a club in terms of the attendances. So we're looking to build on that all the time.
Absolutely, yeah, no, that's for sure. And it's interesting you say it's quite fascinating that obviously just switching the game across from a Friday to Sunday can alter the attendees. I mean, for me, interesting you say that. I remember, years ago, growing up, I'm a league fan, and for rugby league was always played on a Sunday, so to speak. And when I first introduced this, going back, it feels like a million years ago now. This was from obviously Sydney, Australia originally, and Friday night football. There was a big buzz about it originally. But I felt that as sort of time went on, there's something special about the Sunday kickoff, really. And do you find that yourself in terms of the Sunday kickoff? There's something special about going down to rugby league on a Sunday afternoon, and I think that obviously we've got to move on with the times as well and look at different option alternatives. But do you find yourself there's like a buzz about the Sunday afternoon game?
Yeah, certainly. And from a family point of view, I've got 2 young children myself, and it's far easier to get them to games on a Sunday, whereas particularly with a TV game, when the video referee is involved, sometimes games are finishing, Friday night games, Thursday night games are finishing after 10 o'clock. Yeah. So it just makes it a bit more, when we're looking to engage families, in particular, to come to our games, it just makes it a lot more easier, and also you've got more time to create an event, whereas on a Friday night people get there to watch the game and then leave straight away. So it's something we're working very hard on in terms of engaging with our fans. We've had a number of fans forums as the year's gone on, where we're engaging with groups of fans to get some feedback on the best direction of travel for us. Again, that's very important, that kind of feedback we get. But it's the historic thing, when the club used to play at the Willows, and Friday nights were a very big thing, and you would have United footballers there and so on. But in today's market, a very competitive market in Greater Manchester for sport, I think we need to create our own little niche on a Sunday afternoon in order to engage families and get more people into the turnstiles.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting you say that, and I think for me, one thing we are blessed with around this area is sport. There's some great teams, and it's phenomenal. I think you've got obviously yourselves, you've got the Manchester clubs on the doorstep, City, United. You've also got an abundance of teams in the Championship and lower leagues. You've got other codes as well. You've got the rugby's not too far away from here to Union, and that's the thing really in terms of the emphasis being. Do you guys sort of find yourself engaging with fans from the past, or you increasing the fan base? Do you find it more and more people are participating, or?
We've done an awful lot of work in both respects, really. We've, in recent years, we've perhaps lost some fans for whatever reason, and we've done a lot of work around our lapsed fans and trying to encourage them back to games, and we've been successful with that. But also it's about creating a new market. And we've done a lot of work with local schools, with community clubs. We've been offering season tickets to under 11s for free. All of our community clubs in the local area, the local amateur rugby league clubs, we've been offering under 16 free season tickets. Just to create that kind of next generation of our fans. And again, our numbers in terms of engagement with that from fans has been fantastic. But it just is now looking at developing a little bit further into new areas. And to sell, because rugby league's a fantastic product and it sells itself, but it's just about getting people into the stadium to watch their first game, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. That's rugby league is a tremendous game. It's played by tremendous athletes, that's for sure. And I think it's a riveting sport, action, intense stuff. You're seeing some of the best athletes in the world competing, that's for sure. It certainly sells itself. I think the challenge is obviously, at least in the way I see it, in my opinion, is the different codes. There's a lot of different sports, and I think that, I suppose in one sense it makes a lot of sense to play on the Sunday. These days football is more sporadic. They can play on Saturday, they can play all hours really, that's for sure. But equally insane, I think for me too, for one of the areas too, is obviously televised football too. Now there's so many channels available that you can watch, and people are sort of stopping in and watching the games as well. Do you find that the TV market is a challenge as well in terms of people?
I think one of the challenges for us, and when we talked about this with our fans forum at the back end of last season, was looking at identifying the times for us to play our home games. And when you start to move your home games around because of other external factors, you're not creating any continuity. And our decision was predominantly, there will be times where perhaps there's a big football game on, but we're Salford Red Devils Rugby League Club, and we want to have our brand and our whole game day based around a Sunday afternoon, so we made the decision to stick with that. There are the odd games which are televised for Sky, so that we played St Helens on a Thursday night, for example, but like I say, our non-televised games will be Sunday afternoons to cater for our fans and the families.
Absolutely, yeah, that's for sure. And I think that, it's one of them. There's always going to be something on somewhere. You set your stall out, and obviously, you set your stall out, and the goal is obviously get people to get involved. It's quite interesting you mentioned that, the engagement with the local. I say the local, with the fans. If one thing's for sure, at least in the higher levels of football, where there seems to be more and more disengagement with the fans, and that's not a cliche. I don't have any statistical data on it, but my perception through my experience of working in the media and other outlets over the years, worked in sport, football myself as well, in coaching roles as well. It seems to me that the bigger clubs now have sort of lost touch of it, the local engagement anyway. That's not so much the case with the lower league clubs. There still is that sort of engagement. I've spoken to a manager on the show a few weeks ago, and we talked about how on a match day in the UK, there's no better buzz than sort of walking through a town centre and people getting ready to go see a game and being there and that sort of stuff. In terms of engagement with the fans, how have you sort of managed to do it? Have you guys managed to sort of engage with the fans? Obviously, I think for the people listening who aren't well up on rugby league, and obviously it's a big rugby league community here, you guys are playing in the top tier of the game, and you're sort of engaging with people. How do you guys go about doing the process of interacting with people? Is it through the internet, through?
I think one of the things that rugby league as a game is a strength is that making it accessible to the fans, and I agree with you, in football sometimes the players are seen as a completely distant, but in terms of the club, we've done an awful lot. Our first team squad have all been visiting community clubs to take coaching sessions. We've had players going to schools. For example, we a number of our players, and Ian Watson, the first team coach, went to a primary school for World Book Day. Our players have got very strong social media presence, particularly on Twitter, and we've had a number of incidents where, as a club, we've been involved in things in the community, and as a result of that, we've got some very good engagement with people on Twitter. I was reading a report on sports clubs' Twitter usage the other day, and we come out very favourably, not only in rugby league but in sport in general. So I think it's looking at different ways to try and engage people. But our players are fantastic role models, they're fantastic athletes, and they're very, very prepared to get out into the community and engage with fans, which I think is an absolute plus for us as a club and us as a sport, and I think it's very important.
Absolutely. And tell us a bit about the club, the way the club's getting on this season so far. I mean, is the club sort of meeting expectations, and what were the expectations at the start of the season, and how's things getting on? Obviously it's early days, we'll sort of see how things get along, but what are your thoughts in terms of the club performances so far?
Yeah, we've had a good start. We're currently fourth in the Super League table. We've had some real highlights. We had a fantastic win in Catalan, where we actually nilled Catalan, which is unheard of, really. Superb performance. We've had a couple of games where last week, the Wigan game and the Castleford game before that, where were kind of near misses, and we had chances, and we were disappointed not to get results there. But in terms of the squad, we've kept the basis of our squad together for this year, added some very new exciting players, and we've built a very strong base for a strong season. It's no secret, we have got quite a small squad, so obviously we need to keep injury free. We just added this week Chris Naninu, who's joined us from Widnes Vikings, who is a fantastic recruit partway through a season, and we're very much looking forward to seeing him play for the club. So we're pleased, and we've got a very good group of players, a great coaching staff behind them, And then behind that, in terms of the setup of the club, we've got some fantastic people involved, and we've built a really strong momentum. And obviously, the challenge will be is to keep that going throughout the season.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's the whole thing. I mean, injury. It's one of them really. Sometimes it's the impact injuries out of people's control. There's not a great deal you can do. You can warm up, you can do all the right things, the training, and unfortunately the nature of contact sport, you're going to get impact injuries. So injury-free obviously is the key for any team. That's a huge thing in terms of any sport. You keep the key way every player you can injury-free. That's the whole idea. One thing I found in my experience, Paul, I would say in terms of injuries where a player gets a knock and he's injured, it's a tough one because obviously it's hard to bring someone in, but the player obviously is still an asset of the club. They've still got the integral part of the club has got to be paid as well, and that was the big thing for me. Obviously, it's a key thing to keep players injury free in that respect. And in terms of injury free on the training side, obviously, you guys have got top staff, some of the best staff going in the area. Have you sort of seen the training go on, the stuff that they do from a training point of view? And
yeah, I wouldn't fancy doing it myself. It's certainly moved on since I've been playing rugby league. But obviously there's a lot of work, yes, with the rehabilitation of injured players and kind of the rehabilitation after games, but it's also the quality of training, the preventative work that's going on as well, and obviously the sports science side of it is massive. And elite sport, all of the clubs tend to be of kind of an equal level, but it's then the little 1%ers that people do that make a difference. And for us as a club, we're looking to maximise what we've got in the squad. Having said that about the small squad, we have people outside of the squad currently who are very talented players who are chomping at the bit to get in the team. Mm-hmm. So it's it's good, and the one thing we've worked hard is to develop a squad who have the right ethic, who understand the club, who want to be part of something at the club, and that we're certainly at that point with this group of players at the minute.
That's interesting stuff. Really, really interesting you say that. I think sports science for me is huge. It's a big part of any sport these days. It's that sort of marginal gains these days where all teams being equal, it could be hydration, it could be, but also the two are linked, the mental side of the game and the physical side of the game. You feel well physically, you're training well, you're going to be on it mentally too. They're huge areas of the game, that's for sure. I think the listeners probably wondering the youth side of things, what goes on at youth level in rugby league, and can you give us some insights, Paul, in terms of what sort of happens at youth? In football, as a general rule, you've got the Centre of Excellence, the academy, and that goes up to about 16. You've got the youth, 16 to 18, and you've got maybe 2 or 3 players that get professional contract. And obviously thereafter, you sort of recruit players outside the club as well. How does it work in terms of youth for you guys?
One of the areas we've perhaps not done as well as a club over recent years is the youth setup. We've brought through some fantastic players currently in our first team squad. We've got people like Niall Evalds, Josh Wood. But again, what we're looking to develop, and certainly as part of my remit, is to develop a pathway for young players, and also not just rugby league players. Currently we're looking for talented athletes who've got the ability to transition into rugby league, who've got the raw materials to be successful. So in terms of our youth setup, we've got what's called a Category 3 academy. So these boys are doing their studies, they're doing BTEC sport and that kind of course, but then they're also playing, representing the Category 3 Academy in the week. One of the young men from the Category 3 Academy, Connor Aspey, has come through this year and has played in a couple of pre-season friendlies. 16 years old, fantastic talent. And what we're looking to create beneath that now is through links with our community clubs, through links with schools, is that clear pathway where we can identify talent at a young age and really support that talent to flourish. And again, more so for us as a club, and in terms of with our financial constraints a little bit, is developing talented youngsters coming through the system, who are ultimately ready to move on to Super League at some stage, and most certainly with the Salford Red Devils. So we've got that conveyor belt, and that's our next development really, is creating that we've already started that process. We've got some great links with some schools. We're identifying young people across Greater Manchester who have fantastic potential, athletic wise as well as rugby wise, and that's it's a great opportunity for us. Greater Manchester and Salford are great sporting cities.
Absolutely,
and we've got to make sure that we're not allowing people to come to these local clubs in our area, the Wigan, the Leeds and so on, and sign our players. We want them to aspire to play for a strong Salford side in Super League, and that's what drives us really. We're looking to create that in the very, very near future. Yeah,
and absolutely. And interesting you say the school involvement as well. What's it like in terms of schools and rugby league participation? For me, I grew up in an environment where rugby league was probably the one, at that point anyway, was the number one sport. Now you sort of played rugby league on the streets, you played in the park, you played at school as well. There's a transition at the time. It went from tackle at a certain age to tag or tip, whatever you want to call it, rugby league. But the point being is that we played at school, and the school competition was huge. What's it like in the UK in general and around this area? School participation in rugby league, is it big, Paul? The people.
In this area, we have our foundation, the Salford Red Devils Foundation, do an awful lot of work in schools, and some competitions are set up from that. And I'm speaking from personal experience. I work at school in Wythenshawe, which isn't necessarily a big rugby area, but we've identified a large number of talented young people in that area who have potential in rugby league, and they've been identified through tournaments set up by Neil Blackburn and Danny Barton in the foundation. And again, it's giving them somewhere to go with that talent, not just using it when they play for school, but then also getting them to get involved with community clubs, but then also ultimately then them seeing the possibility of aspiring to be a professional rugby league player. So again, it's that clarity over pathway. And schools seeing the fact that once you've got one player coming through the system who's from your school, it creates a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy then. So we're working very hard with schools across Greater Manchester to develop that.
Is there a schools competition? I mean, is that sort of, do most schools have a team? Is that how it works?
There's a Manchester schools competition, Salford schools competition, and each area will have their individual competitions. Again, one of the things we're looking to develop is to develop that even further, so the links with the clubs and the schools are more enhanced, so it's not just for those competitions necessarily. The foundation again, and some of the players are going into schools to deliver coaching sessions. So it's just it's one of those things that's a little bit of a slow burner that you won't necessarily get instant payback for, but it's just starting to develop the links through the community. Like I said earlier about giving season tickets and golden tickets. We have a golden ticket scheme where a child can bring an adult for £10 for both of them to a game, and just getting people to see the quality that goes on the field, but then also understanding where they can play rugby league if they wish to, and where they can develop that talent if they show ability in the game.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make there. I guess what sort of dawns on me there is that I'm sort of thinking here, okay, you've got the traditional teams that, when I say traditional teams, obviously you guys have been around for a long time, as long as anybody else in that respect. The point being is that you've got the Wigans of this world, the St Helens of this world, and from a young person's point of view, their aspirations, what can you guys do? How important is success on the field to draw these players away from, okay, well, I'm going to go down that road there? I suppose a little about football, you're going to have certain teams that, I wouldn't say more fashionable, but to certain young players might seem like the right team to go to for whatever reason, the pedigree of the club at the time. I mean, how important is the success on the field first team for you guys to bring these players in?
Yeah, it's obviously a very important part of it, but I think also it's the structure beneath that. So when you've got a young player who perhaps at the age of 13 or 14 years old is being approached by a number of professional clubs, they also want to know that structure is in place to develop them. And obviously some of that you've referred to Wigan there, and they've got very well established youth systems, and we're a little bit behind there, but we're moving forwards all the time, and our model will be that there is a very clear pathway with very clear benchmarks. So a young player, when they're looking at the support they'd receive moving to a club, will look at ours and think they're going to receive some very strong coaching, some very strong personal development. We will be looking at all aspects of developing a decent person as well as a decent rugby league player. We'll be doing work around mental toughness, around diet. We'll be supporting parents. And when you look at that package, and ultimately what we want is young players in this area to be playing rugby on a Sunday morning for their community club, thinking one day I want to play for Salford Red Devils, and that's the aim, is to develop that and looking to get more homegrown players into our squad as we move forwards.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. And I remember a few years ago that I was speaking to a colleague of mine who was involved at Wigan Rugby League doing some mental skills coaching over there, and he was telling me how one of the goals at the time was to get the local areas where the local areas we had, say, young players who, not necessarily unemployed, but the more urbanised areas, the tougher areas, to get them involved in the game. And obviously from the point of view that you said too, to help them as well and help the community, and that was in mind. But equally, I couldn't help thinking to myself, Paul, there's another side to it too, where you got the hungry player, the player who's sort of, seen life for what it is and possibly struggled a bit. Maybe parents might struggle to work, or they might be on a really working class wage, and the sort of tough, hungry player. Do you guys sort of looking to sort of tap into the more urban areas where you've got, the sort of hungry player, the player on the way up type thing, or?
Yeah. Obviously we're looking across Greater Manchester, but again, it's that whole thing of sometimes young players, and again, I'm speak from personal experience when we work in schools, is sometimes that purpose and having something to aim for and something to dream of gives them the inspiration to make great choices for life. So what we're looking to develop is going to be impactful, not just in a rugby sense but also a life sense, and in terms of giving an opportunity for young people to think, well, actually I could aspire to play in Super League, or I've got the potential, and then making the most of that rather than being somebody who always talks about what they could have been or what they should have been or what they might have been. So again, that's one of our things, is creating a pathway to develop that aspiration, and if that somewhere along the line helps to shape a young person or a number of young people's lives, then that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that one of the things that I sort of make reference to is like over in the USA, where soccer, football, as we know it here, is predominantly a middle class sport, at least has been every time I've gone over there. But now they're sort of going out there into more urban areas, like they've started to do a little bit in golf out there, in tennis too. They've seen the likes of the Williams sisters come through and how far they can go. Certainly there's an abundance of sporting talent in this area. It's huge. There are huge areas around here that are working class, salt of the earth people who love their sport, and I think that's a great thing for me to get them involved, not just to be the next sort of Salford superstar, but also just getting them involved in the community and having that sort of communal feel. And that's one that I love about this area, is a good communal feel about it. There still is that sort of community-based feel. And do you get that in the actual the ground, the stadium, when people come to watch? Do you still get that sort of communal feel about it? Or?
Yeah, our fans are fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and it's shown in in the home games, but the away following we take to games are often commented on. When you read reports about how loud the Salford fans are and how great a support they are, the number of fans who went across to Catalan, to Perpignan a few weeks ago to watch that game, and again, it's one of those things that our fans are fantastic, and we just want now to develop that number of fans. It is a great product on the field. We're looking for our team to be successful and to be competing for titles and competing for cups, but it all depends on the crowds increasing, and the increase in that finance then allows us to keep developing and keep signing the players that will help us to achieve that goal.
I saw recently Paul, Warrington established a women's team recently, I believe so. Do you guys have female rugby league as well, or? Not
currently, but that's certainly in the pipeline. We're, again, as part of our school strategy, girls rugby league is taking off. Certainly, I know, again, from the school I work in, we've got fantastically talented girls playing rugby league, and again, once we've got everything up and running with the pathway, the Greater Manchester pathway, that will be our next stage, is to look at girls rugby league and look to make a provision there for girls in the Greater Manchester area as well.
Absolutely, getting them involved as well. That's the whole thing. I think that's what it's all about.
The one thing about rugby league, Jim, is as a sport, the skills it teaches young people, in terms of self-discipline, in terms of teamwork, in terms of work ethic, is fantastic, and it is that thing of getting those skills embedded in young people, which will see them right in whatever they choose to do, whether it's on a rugby field or not.
Absolutely, and I think culturally as well, rugby league too. We see sometimes to be fair, there's a lot of footballers who do a lot of good things on and off the pitch as well, off the pitch too. Sometimes certain footballers, they're publicised, they do something wrong, and I'm not condoning some of the behaviour some of the football over the years, obviously, but some of them are young lads and they've been in that environment for a long time, and they make the odd mistake here and there, but they do a lot of good stuff too. And in terms of rugby league, is there a lot of stuff that goes away off the pitch too? Do the lads in the rugby league lads at Salford, do they do? I mean, you mentioned earlier about going to the schools and that sort of stuff, and can you just sort of give an insight to people listening what the guys do? I think it's important to sort of publicise, both football and rugby league, what some of the players do outside the game as well that people don't realise.
Yeah, the squad have all been out coaching at community clubs, going to do community club visits, things like presentation evenings for the community clubs, going into schools, doing visits. Obviously, the rugby league players are fantastic role models, and in terms of the athleticism, but also in terms of the mindset and mentality they have. So what our squad, and it's very important to us as a community club that we engage fully, and you will see it. And when I've taken people to watch games at the AJ Bell Stadium, the accessibility of the players, our players at the end of a game will walk around the edge of the ground and shake hands and have pictures taken with fans, sign autographs. And that's a really important part of that feel we're looking to create with the club, that it's just one club and everybody's working together. Similarly, when the players come up after the game to the bar area there, and they'll just they'll be talking with the fans. It's a really important duty, but also a really important part of developing that spirit within the club. But that's not something that is just personal to us. I think it's a very strong rugby league thing.
Yeah, I think so too. I certainly think so, that in rugby league over the years, and absolutely, there has been that sort of accessibility. The players are a lot more accessible, I think. When we sort of think of the level, the top tier rugby league players, top tier football players, but I think a lot of that's down to do a number of factors too. It's a sort of cultural thing in sport, and there's also many other things too. That sort of, it's multifactorial. I don't think it's down to one thing, but it is what it is, and that's for sure. Irrespective of which club you go to, it is different in league, and I think that's a buzz. Really, I think anyone goes along and they can be part of it. That's what it's all about. The community being part of it. No, that's for sure. So just sort of referring to that World Health Day. Can you tell us a bit more about that in itself? That's interesting point you made there, the World Health Day.
Yeah, we've developed a partnership with Salford Royal Hospital, and for World Health Day, for the whole home game, we have a whole suite of activities planned, which are really wide ranging, focusing on health, and obviously tying in with Salford Royal's Trust's work on developing health across the city. But there will be a number of activities going on. There will be something going on at half time aimed to engage the whole crowd, and it's something that's really passionate to us. Again, we're looking to serve the community and developing strong partnerships with community organisations. We've announced yesterday our Magic Weekend shirt, which for people who aren't aware of Magic Weekend, it's where one round of Super League is played at the same venue. This year it's at Anfield in Liverpool. Previously it's been at St James's Park in Newcastle and at the Etihad Stadium in Manchester, and all of the teams play in the same venue over a 2-day period, and teams tend to launch a charity shirt. We've had a very high profile shirt linked into with the Manchester B on the front last year. And also this year we've linked in with Salford Royal, so we've launched our Salford Royal themed Magic Weekend shirt yesterday, and there will be a donation from the club to Salford Royal's Heart Monitor Fund for all of those shirts that are sold. So it's again it's about creating those strong partnerships, and World Health Day is just one example of what we're looking to do to have an impact on the community.
That's really interesting stuff, and Salford Royal obviously being a bedrock really in terms of the area. Phenomenal staff there, incredible staff. We obviously in this country have a great health service. People work tirelessly, so it's great to get people involved like that. And I think the youngsters too, I think it's a great experience. I mean, you imagine being a youngster being involved involved with these top athletes is inspirational, and I certainly speak from my own experiences when you sort of see athletes getting involved in schools, and it is inspirational for them. I think it's a really, really big thing. It's almost like a duty, really, because how many players you see, they've got the poster on the wall of the player they look up to, and then 10 years later, 20 years later, they're playing against them, or they're emulating the footsteps of that person too, and it's interesting stuff. So it's been fascinating, talking to you, Paul. I think it's a really interesting insight, especially for people who football obviously is the number one code in this country. That said, there's no reason why rugby league can't have its place, and it does have its place. It certainly does do, and people do watch it, and it's a big sport in this country for sure. So, in terms of any players and international honours, rugby league, have you got any players on the periphery of sort of playing in getting international honours? Or
two of our squad have been selected this week for the England Knights performance squad. So Niall Evalds and Josh Jones, and I think there are some others in the squad who must have been knocking on the door for that selection, and they'll be part of that training squad throughout the year for the end of year international games. But it's one of the things. We've got a lot of talented players at the club who are capable of achieving international status, and obviously when the results are going well and the performances are going well, that puts everybody in the shop window. And it's a great testimony to the quality of our squad and the coaching they're receiving, that we've got players knocking on the door of international standard.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, I think it's really important if you can sort of get players into the international setup, then it's aspiration for the younger players. They see that and going forward. And I mean, just your thoughts, Paul. I mean, you sort of rugby union has taken off in the sense that you've got the World Cup now. It's getting more and more established. This is sort of from a global perspective, your sort of global force. You look at rugby union now. It's taken off. A number of teams, countries are playing. It's the number one sport now. Obviously number one sport in New Zealand, but it's getting closer in certain countries. And what's the difference between rugby union? Why do you think in the last 20 or 30 years has rugby union sort of moved quicker, at least in the way I see it, in terms of their international competition than maybe rugby league internationally? Because I think for me, rugby league is a fantastic sport. It's end-to-end stuff, the pace of the game as well. I sort of can't put my finger on why union moved quicker than league. Is any sort of thoughts?
I think at international level, when you see England Rugby Union playing at Twickenham with 80,000 plus people watching, and the level of sponsorship involved in rugby union, when you compare it to the international game over here, where games sometimes will be midweek, or it's not got the same profile, and I think that then becomes self-generating, and obviously then the sponsors are attracted to the games, and then you start to develop a real cycle of success, and you can see why it's attractive. Playing in front of a packed out Twickenham or Murrayfield in Scotland. So it's we've got some way to go in terms of the international game, but again, hopefully that will come with success, and the England team, competing consistently well with the Australian and New Zealand teams. But there is also a marketing aspect there which needs to be enhanced and
absolutely
developed.
Yeah, I mean, the last Rugby League World Cup I think was a success. I mean, England did really, really well. They were probably an ankle tap away from it's one of them. These are margins really, and that's the thing really. I think you've made a great point there. On international scene, it's just sort of being consistently competitive. But I think the team now, so your thoughts on international setup now is close. It's millimetres away. There's not a great deal away now. There's some great young players who've come through. I think the coaching staff are a testimony to giving these young players the opportunity to play. You play the young players, they develop, they're a strong team, that's for sure. How do you see the international team itself going from where they are now?
I think one of the things that's really stands out is the number of players currently going, and we don't want to lose players from Super League, obviously the talented players, but the number of British players who are going across to Australia and being successful in the NRL.
Yes.
Obviously John Bateman has gone from Wigan this year and has made the headlines in the first, I think, 2 rounds. And that's a good sign of our development, for the game as a whole in this country, that we are producing players who can go across and be successful in the NRL, which is seen as being the elite competition. But it is also creating that next tier. I think one of the things in history is Great Britain and England, when it's been under the guise of England, has always had a strong 13 or 15 players, but then below that there's not necessarily been that strength. I think now we're there, and it shows with the fact we've now got the England squad and the England Knights squad beneath that, and it's, you know, it bodes well, and it's probably one of those things that will just, when we do get over the line in a World Cup, hopefully in the near future, that then builds that next level of success.
I mean, they had a good series against New Zealand not long ago. They played some good rugby league, that's for sure. And I think that the other thing too, I think that the imports too are better. I think that the players coming over here from Australia and New Zealand have improved too. I think that, you know, you don't generally get the I'm not saying that they used to get, you know, the journeyman, but you used to get the occasional player that would come over here in the career type thing, but now you're seeing players come over here that are in their prime, or they're on the ascendancy, they're on the way up, and I think that's made a big difference too. Also coaching staff, I think that's been a big thing over here as well in terms of, you know, promoting coaching staff, which you guys have done very well, by the way. You know, coaches from this country and in the area, and also coaching staff have come over here from abroad, the likes of Bennett. They're top class. They're world class. They're sort of people that you want to learn from. And I think getting that balance is right in international sport, be it football, be it union, be it league. You get the best coaches in the world, irrespective of where they're from. You get them involved. But then there's an obligation then to sort of surround them with local coaches to learn from them. And I think that league seems to have got that right at the moment. So I think that, you know, that hopefully will bode well